What's up? It's me. Today I'm going to be reciting to you the entire book of Genesis. I don't know how long this video is going to be, but I'll try and get through it. Let's begin. So, in the beginning, there was nothing except God. Nothing existed, nothing was around. It was nothingness and God. And then God decides that in that nothingness, he is going to create a place called Earth. He made everything, the grass, the earth, the waters, and the creatures that inhabit the land and the sea. And amongst those creatures, he made two creatures called Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve were perfect. They had everything. But God gave them one simple rule, and that was to not eat from the forbidden fruit of the forbidden tree. See, Adam and Eve were placed in the Garden of Eden, a utopia, a perfect place. There was no pain, there was no agony, there was nothing. Pain, deception, no bad thing existed there. And then one day, Eve goes up to the tree and she sees a snake, slithering towards her. Which, it wasn't a snake, by the way, it was a serpent. And the serpent basically says that if you eat from the tree, not only will you have knowledge, but you'll be just like God. And Eve, looking at it, she's like, oh, well, that's amazing. I should eat from this tree. But before that, she's like, wait, but didn't God tell me not to eat from the tree? And so, the serpent, he's tempting her. So he's like, yeah, but like, you'd be just like God. And Eve is like, oh, okay, bet I should just eat from it then. So she eats it, and then instead of just savoring it all for herself, she takes it to Adam, and Adam eats it. Now, when they ate from the forbidden fruit, it gave them knowledge that they didn't want. So at first they were naked because they were innocent. They didn't know what nakedness was. They felt no shame, no regret, no nothing. And then when they ate from the fruit, Adam instructs Eve and himself that they should, put on some leaves to clothe themselves and that they should hide. And then God comes down and he's like, yo, where are you guys? Why do you hide from me? And then Adam and Eve are like, yo, we just didn't want you to see that we were naked. And then God being God, he's like, how did you guys know you were naked? And then Eve is like, the serpent you created tricked me. God sees this and he's like, oh, okay. And he punishes the serpent. So the serpent was like a lizard. And then when God cursed it, it turned into a snake. And then God punishes Adam and Eve. He goes up to Eve and he's like, Eve, you're punished. You're going to have periods and childbirth is going to be painful. He didn't mention periods. That's just... So he goes up to Eve and he's like, to punish Eve, he's like, your childbirth is going to be very painful. And then he goes up to Adam and he's like, Adam, because you did what you did, life won't be easy anymore. You're going to have to work hard and you're going to have to labor to get your food. And then God banishes them from the Garden of Eden. And to make sure that they didn't come back into the Garden of Eden, God made sure that there was an angel with a sword made of like fire so they couldn't go back into the Garden of Eden. And then sooner or later they have clothes because God, I forgot to mention this, but God gifted them garments to keep them warm. And then sooner or later they have children, and they named the two boys, which they had sons, were Cain and Abel. Adam teaches Cain and Abel about God. They're like, okay, God is good all the time. We should start worshiping and we should give sacrifices to him. So Cain and Abel, as they get older, the time comes where they're about to give sacrifices to God. So Cain and Abel are about to give, sacrifices to God. Abel is sacrificing his flocks, and Cain, he's only thinking about his crops. So he sacrifices his crops. God is like pleased with Abel and his sacrifice, but Cain, he's hating on Abel. And then Cain is, he's hating on Abel. So he's like, bet, I'm gonna smoke Abel. So, long story short, Cain smokes Abel. And then, Cain tries to hide it, like God isn't all-knowing. So Cain tries to hide that he smoked Abel. And, eventually God gets, he's God. So he's like, Cain, where's your brother? And then Cain is like, yo, I don't know. Am I my brother's keeper? And then God is like, yo, I know what you did. You're gonna get punished for it. So, sooner or later, Adam and Eve get word that Cain smoked Abel. So, Adam and Eve get word that Cain smoked Abel, and they're, they're grieving, and they're grieving, and they're like, yo, what, this actually sucks. Cain smoked our boy. Lord, what can you do for us? And then God, being God, he's like, bet, I'm finna give y'all another son, and, they have Seth. And then Seth had, two descendants. One was Enoch, and the second was Methuselah. I don't know if I'm saying his name right. Please give me a break. He was the oldest person to ever live. He lived a lifespan of 969 years. And so as time goes, oh, I also forgot to mention this. Cain also went on to start a civilization called Nod. Do with that information as you will. And then slowly but surely, the world just like devolves into madness, right? Wickedness is happening. People start worshiping idols. People are just committing all types of sin. But there's one righteous man amongst all of them that went by the name of Noah. And Noah is like talking to the people. He's like, yo, y'all need to repent from your sin. Come back to the one true God who made y'all. And you know, they're nagging Noah. So they're like, no. They're like calling him names and they're being mean. And then Noah, being Noah, he starts praying, and then God starts talking to Noah, and then God speaks to my boy Noah, and he's like, yo, I regret making humans, so I'm finna wipe out wickedness, right? I'm finna flood the earth. Because I rock with you so hard, I'm finna give you some guidance, right? So you finna build the ark, so when this flood happens, you'll be good and your homies will be good too. And then Noah's like, bet, how do I build it? And then God is like, okay, I'm finna show you the measurements, and you just finna, like, I guess just like memorize it, because I don't know how else he built that without forgetting. So as Noah continues to build the ark, God tells Noah, yo, get 7 pairs of every animal, and Noah's like, bet. And then sooner or later, the flood happens. Noah has his homies, his sons' wives with him. He has also his sons too. And he just has his family, and they're cruising on the ark, and they're just, yeah. The flood happened for 40 days and 40 nights. And then, they start taking care of the animals, and then Noah's like, bet, it's time to see if there's land out there. So he sends out a raven, and he knows that if the raven goes out there and doesn't come back, that means it found land. And then the raven comes back, and it has a leaf with them, and then Noah's like, oh, bet, there's land. And so they land, and they start thanking God. They're like, God, you a real one. And then Noah comes out, and he's just like praising God. And then God is like, yo, Noah, since I rock with you so hard, I'm gonna make a promise to you in the form of a wonder. So that's how the rainbow became a thing, because the rainbow was God's promise to Noah, being like, okay, I'll never end the world by flood again. Okay, now we finna talk about the Tower of Babel. So the Tower of Babel was basically a bunch of people that thought they worked so well because they could communicate with each other, because back then they spoke in like one language, so it was very easy to talk to one another. So they were like, bet, since we work together so well, let's build a tower to heaven, and if we do that, we'll be powerful because we'll rule, and it's just finna be dope. And God senses their wickedness. He sees it, and he's like, bet, y'all really think I'm gonna let that happen? So he diverses their languages, and all of them start speaking in tongues, for real. They just start speaking different languages, and they can't communicate with each other. So they stop working on the tower. And that's how different languages became a thing. Now we finna talk about Abram. Mind you, the stories I'm telling you are in chronological order in which they happened, so be free to look this up. So Abram is out late at night, and his wife Sarai comes up to him, and Sarai, his wife, is like, yo, baby, what you doing out here? It's late at night. And Abram proceeds to tell Sarai, he's like, baby girl, I gotta drop some knowledge upon you. So God just got done talking to me. Because God was speaking to Abram, he was like, yo, if God just told me to leave everything I have, and he's gonna make me the father of a great nation. Sorry, my bad. And then Sarai, his wife, is like, but baby, what's your father gonna think? And Abram's like, he ain't gonna take that lightly. So Abram goes up to his dad, and he's like, yo, papa, your boy gotta leave to become the father of a great nation. And Abram's dad reasonably is like, man, y'all, you ain't doing that by yourself. We, your family, we're gonna come with you. And by doing that, Abram kind of like disobeyed God, because God only told Abram that he was supposed to go by himself. And then Abram and his father and his tribe are talking, and they're walking, and they're just chatting it up. And Abram's dad says something between the lines of like, you should worship every single God. That way you don't make one mad if you left him out. Sorry, I got bad speaking pattern. And so Abram, your boy, and his entire tribe goes to a land called Haran. And then Terah, which was one of the people that left with them, was like, yo, I like it here, I'm gonna retire here. One day Terah gets smoked, like they pass away, and Abram becomes the leader of the entire tribe. And then Abram takes charge immediately. He's like, okay, bet, I'm gonna take this opportunity while I still can. I'm gonna gather the entire tribe, load up the animals, and I'm gonna obey my God, and I'm gonna go to where he told me to go. And you gotta think though, Abraham was like trying to get to this like place for years. They were like nomads by the time they actually got there. And then little by little, they start running out of food, and then Abram's like, oh man, this sucks. And then he's like, okay, let's dip to Egypt so we can get some more food. And he's talking to Sarai, his wife, and he's like, baby, we finna dip to Egypt. You're so beautiful. If the Pharaoh sees you, he's gonna smoke me and he's gonna take you as his wife. And then Sarai is like, oh yeah, that's true. And then Abraham is like, yo, we should pretend to be brothers and sisters. That way he won't smoke me and take you. And then Abram's like, his fears basically come to life. Pharaoh sees his girl. He's looking her up and down. He's like, baby, you are fine. Yo, you, Abram, you're her brother? Yo, I'm finna pay you riches and gifts. That way, like, I'm taking your sister, bro, because you ain't getting her back. And then Abram's like, oh, this is bad. And then God, being God, he's like, hold up. This is Old Testament. And he hits them with plagues. That's right. You thought God was going to be peaceful? He hits them with plagues. But no, seriously. He hits them with plagues, and then to protect his chosen family. And then Pharaoh is like, yo, you didn't tell me she was your wife. Just take her. I don't want that smoke. And then Abram is like, yo, baby, I messed up, because he's talking to Sarai. He's like, yo, I messed up. I think we should like follow God instead of following my plans. And then Sarai's like, bet. Also, I'm never pretending to be your sister ever again. And so they leave Egypt, and then it wasn't really a good idea because they brought riches and gifts with them. And then Lot, Abram's nephew, starts making a fuss. He's like, yo, we should be the first ones to pick which land we want. And then Abram is like, okay, bet, I'm gonna go talk to him. So he takes Lot to like a land that they own, and they're like, yo, pick what you want and I'll take the other. And then Lot's like, bet, I'm gonna take the one near Sodom. So he takes that one. And so after that, Lot gets kidnapped or captured. He gets captured. And then, the tribesmen, they go to Abram and they're like, yo, he got kidnapped. And Abram's like, okay, bet, we finna slide for Lot. So they smoke everybody and they take Lot back and they save everyone. And then a king goes up to Abram and he blesses him. And he's like, you're cool. And then after the king blessed Abram proceeds to give the king a portion of everything he has. And then some time passes. Abram and Sarai are now old. They're like, and then Abram has a dream, and God's like, you're gonna have more descendants than the stars. And then God is like, your name is not Abram, it's Abraham. He also changes Sarai's name to Sarah. Thank God, literally, because that name is so hard to pronounce. And then, Abraham tells Sarah, he's like, yo, we're gonna have a kid. And Sarai is doubting him. Sarah is doubting him, and she's like, no, I don't think we are, so I'm just gonna get the maidservant to have your kids, and then I'll adopt it. And so Sarah goes up to Hagar, a maidservant, and she's like, yo, you finna have my man's kids, and then I'm gonna adopt it. Hagar is like, bet, say less. And so Sarah and Hagar, basically Sarah starts hating on Hagar because Hagar is having Abraham's kids. So Hagar not being able to take the abuse, she just leaves. And then an angel goes up to Hagar and is like, girl, where are you going? You have a duty to fulfill. And then Hagar is like, yo, she's being super mean to me. I can't take this anymore. I'm just finna dip. And then the angel is like, yo, you finna have a kid of your own, and his name is gonna be Ishmael. So Hagar returns, and she has a son named Ishmael, and she's like, everybody's celebrating. Except Sarah, she's hating on Hagar for having a kid with her husband. And then 3 strangers pull up to Abraham's crib, and they're like, yo, Sarah finna have a kid. And Abram's like, whoa, bet, I'm finna go tell Sarah. But Sarah was eavesdropping. The 3 messengers also tell Abraham that the city of Sodom is gonna be destroyed. And then Abraham's like freaking out because that's where his nephew Lot is. And, Abraham, he's freaked out by this, so he goes to God, and he starts to bargain with God. He's like, God, would you destroy the city of Sodom if there were 50 righteous good people in it? And God's like, no. And slowly but surely, Abraham is bargaining him down, to 10 people. And he's like, would you destroy it if there were 10 people in it? And God's like, no. If there's 10 good people in it, I'll destroy it. Oh, wait, no. He said that if 10 righteous people were in it, he would like save it if there were 10 richest people. And you know, God being God, he's like, okay, I'm gonna test Lot. So he sends 2 angels to the city of Sodom. And then, you know, the 2 angels being new to Sodom, people start noticing and they're like, yo, we want those 2 people. And, you know, Lot invites these 2 strangers that he doesn't know into his house, and he's blocking the door so the angry mob cannot get to the 2 angels. And they're like, yo, I can't say what they wanted to do to them because YouTube guidelines are a thing, but they wanted the angels, and then Lot's like, no, you cannot have the 2, you cannot have them, because they didn't know they were angels. They were angels, but they called them strangers because they didn't know the true identity of the angels. And so they were like, yo, give us those 2 strangers you have. And then Lot's like, no, you can't have them. Instead, take my 2 daughters, which is wild, seeing that what those 2 people wanted to do to the 2 strangers. And then, you know, Lot passed the test, so the angels start revealing their true form. They're like, bet, screw this. And they blind the people of the angry mob, and they're like, yo, I can't see. And then Lot's like, yo, what's going on? The angels are like, yo, we're actually angels. We need to get you out of here. There are no righteous people here. And then Lot's like, my family, I gotta go get my cousin. I gotta go get my family, cuz. And then the angels are like, okay, bet, go get him. And then Lot goes to get his family. They're not believing him, so he has no choice but to leave them. So it's him, his wife, and his 2 daughters, plus the 2 angels. So they get out of there, they're running out, and they're not turning back. One of the angels says, don't look back at the city of sin, or you're just gonna get smoked. And then, you know, Lot's wife, she's like, oh man, but it's my only home. So she turns around and she gets turned into a pillar of salt. Fast forward a little bit, and then Abraham is going up to his mountain to worship God, and he sees like smoke coming up from the ground, and he's like, I wonder what that is. He sees Sodom is destroyed, like there's no remnants of it. And then Abraham is like, yo, we finna dip. So they pack all their stuff and they move to a new thing. Sarah has a kid. They call the kid Isaac. And then, you know, slowly but surely, Hagar and Sarah start to like slowly bicker. And then Sarah's like, yo, you better get this out of here, or else I'm gonna get mad. Sarah is basically telling Abraham, yo, we don't need Hagar anymore, get her out of here. And then Abraham, you know, being Abraham, he goes up to God and he's like, God, what do I do? And then, you know, God just straight up says like, yo, just send Hagar on her way. I'll look after her and Ishmael. You're good. And then Hagar and Ishmael are off in the desert. And then Ishmael starts to get like dehydrated, like severely. Like he's like, and then, you know, Hagar, she's like, nah, man, I can't look at this. So she turns her back because she can't watch her son like, you know, pass away like this. So she's like, man. And then she starts praying. She's like, Lord, please just help us. We need help. And then God, you know, being a loving God, he makes like a spring of water happen. So like now fresh water is pouring from like a rock. And she's like, yo, Ishmael, we're saved. And then, you know, out of nowhere, God tests Abraham, and he's like, Abraham, take your son to a mountain and sacrifice him. This is how I'll know, like, basically like a loyalty test. So he's like, yo, smoke your son for me. And then Abraham, like, takes a second. He's like, okay. And he goes to smoke his son Isaac. And as they're going up, like, the mountain of which, like, Abraham is going to, like, try and sacrifice Isaac, like, Isaac is, like, getting suspicious. He's like, oh, well, where are we going? And, you know, like, Abraham's like, oh, we're going up to the mountain. And Isaac is like, oh, well, we don't have a sacrifice. And Abraham, like, lifting stuff, he's like, the Lord will provide. And so they get to the top of the mountain, and Abraham ties up his son. He puts him on a stack of sticks, and he's about to slice this boy up. He's about to go, and then God is like, stop, don't do that. I would never actually ask you to do something like that. But it was like a test of faith. It was a test of faith, and you proved yourself to me. And, you know, Abraham is consulting with Isaac. He's like, Isaac, I was going to do it because God told me to. We should always obey God. And Isaac is like, bet. For the sacrifice, God basically just spawned a goat. And Abraham looks at the goat and he's like, bet. So he sacrifices the goat. And, you know, the sacrifice happens, and God's like, yo, because you obeyed me, I'm going to bless the world through your children. And, you know, as time goes on, Isaac is like, yo, I got to find a girl. I got to find a bae. I got to find a wife. And then, Abraham sees this and he's like, yo, I got like, and then he calls like his like most trusted servant. He comes over to Abraham and Abraham's like, yo, I mean, my trusted servant, I trust you the most. I need you to find my son a fine honey, like someone he can spend the rest of his life with. And the trusted servant is like, bet, I got you. Oh, I forgot to mention this. Sarah died. Yeah, okay. So Abraham's most trusted like assistant or like servant goes to like a well that has a bunch of pretty women around it, and he's like behind like a wall, and he's like, Lord, let this be a test. To the first one who gives me water and offers to water my camels, she will be the one for Isaac. And then God answers his prayers, and the first woman who comes up to him, her name is Rachel. I was wrong, her name was not Rachel, it was Rebecca. So basically, the most trusted servant is what I will be calling him now because I forgot his name. Goes up to Rebecca and he's like, yo, my master's son is looking for a wife and you look the part, like you're bad, like you need to be his wife. And she's like, bet, take me to him. And they meet, Isaac and Rebecca meet, and like they're both, and like Rebecca's kind of cheesing, so she's like, yo, this my husband. And Isaac is giving off the same energy. He's cheesing too. He's like, oh man, yo, you kind of hooked me up over here. And Rebecca and Isaac are chilling, and one thing leads to another, and your boy gets bit. No, I'm dragging it, but like they do have kids. One name is Esau, and the other is named Jacob. They have 2 sons. Okay, keep that in mind. One is named Esau, the other is named Jacob. And Esau is like, ugh, and Jacob is like, ugh. But they're homies and they're brothers. And Isaac wants to bless his oldest son, Esau, with a birthright that basically just says that, yo, Esau is he's gonna be the leader of the tribe, and he's gonna have his inheritance doubled. And Jacob is like, man, I want that birthright. But as time goes on, Isaac becomes like blind. He becomes really old, and he gets one of his servants. He's like, yo, bring me Esau so I can bless him. And then Rebecca, Isaac's wife, hears it, and she's like, bet, let me go get Jacob. So she's sprinting towards Jacob. She gets to Jacob. She's like, yo, Jacob, go to Isaac. He's finna bless Esau. Take his place so he can bless you instead. But Jacob is like, mama, I'm not going to be able to play the part because, Esau's skin is hairy and it's thick. Mine is just like, it's like unhairy and it's smooth. Jacob was telling Rebecca this, his mom, because, Isaac would be able to tell. He would like rub his arm and be like, oh man, you're not Esau, get out of here. And Rebecca is like brainstorming. So she's trying to find of ways how like she can disguise Jacob as Esau. And she's like, bet, take this coat, put it over you. Your arms are going to feel like Esau. They're going to be hairy, they're going to be rough, and he won't be able to tell the difference. And so Jacob is like, bet, let me go get my blessing. So that when Isaac went to go feel Jacob's arms, it would feel like Esau's. So basically, Jacob ends up going into, Isaac's tent, and he has like some meat. He's like, here, father, take it. I'm Esau. He isn't. And just like that, Isaac blesses Jacob instead of Esau. Jacob has stolen Esau's birthright. Fast forward a little bit, Esau gets home, he's ready, he's prepared. He just got back from hunting, he's had a good day, time to get your boy his blessing, you feel what I'm saying? So, Esau goes into the tent and he's like, yo, Papa, where's my blessing? And then Isaac is like, I just gave you your blessing. And then Esau is like, no, you didn't. And Jacob's like, yes, I did. And then, slowly but surely, he's starting to connect the dots. He's like, Jacob just took my birthright. I'm smoking, bro, on my set. What Cain did to Abel, I'm gonna do to you. He didn't actually say that, but maybe whatever. But he did say he was gonna smoke Jacob. So yeah, do with that as you will. And so Rebecca gets word that Esau wants to smoke Jacob. So Rebecca goes up to, what's his name? She goes up to Isaac, her husband, and also the father of the two. And she's like, yo, he's gonna smoke Jacob. We need to do something. And then Isaac is like, yo, baby girl, you right. Bring my son to me. I'm gonna figure a plan. That way his life don't get taken. And so Jacob goes up to Isaac and they start figuring out a plan. Isaac is like, yo, you need to dip. Esau is going to smoke you. And Jacob's like, bet, where do I go? And Isaac is like, I don't know. It just can't be here. So Jacob is like, bet, I guess I'm gonna be on my way. So he goes into the desert. He goes into the desert and he's like, and he collapses and he just goes to sleep and he has a dream. Also, I forgot to mention this. Rebecca did tell Jacob where to go. He told him to go meet his uncle Laban in Haran, and Jacob is like, bet. Okay, back to the story. So, Jacob is collapsed in the desert. He's sleeping, and he has a dream about, basically, to angel. I don't know how to explain this, but angels are like going up and down a ladder. I think I might put an overlay right here. I'm not 100% sure. Like, to show you what it might have looked like. And then, Jacob, realizing that the dream is from God, he's like, oh, snap. So he gets up and he builds an altar of stone to God. And after he's done making it, he's like, okay, bet, let me head on my travels. And then he sees some sheep and he sees a shepherd and he's like, yo, like that dude's with my uncle Laban. So he goes up to the guy and he's like, yo, do you know where my uncle Laban is? And the guy's like, no, but that sheep is like, that flock of sheep is his, and the girl leading it, she knows where he is. You just gotta go up to her. He also goes on to say that the girl with like Laban's flock of sheep is his daughter Rachel, and Jacob's like, bet, so let me go up to her so I can find my uncle Laban. And upon meeting Rachel, Jacob is like, oh baby, look at you. And Jacob is like, okay, bet, take me to yo daddy. And she's like, bet. So she takes him to Laban, and he goes up to Laban and he's like, yo, your daughter is like, she's so beautiful, I want to marry her. And her dad is like, man, I can see you a hard worker, you've been working hard, so bet, I'm gonna tell you this, work for me for 7 years and I'll give you my daughter. And Jacob is down bad for this girl, so he's like, bet, if I have to work 7 years just to get a piece of that, I will. So 7 years go by and Jacob has just worked hard to achieve his goal, to get his woman, right? And the time comes at his wedding, one of the girls, Rachel, comes up to him and she's like, yeah, bet. And they get married. And then he finds out quickly after that the girl is not actually Rachel. So my man is furious. He's like, man, what is this? So he goes up to Laban and he's like, Laban, what's this? I worked 7 years and you gave me the wrong daughter. Laban, his uncle, is like, yo, I'm sorry, I couldn't give you Rachel unless my oldest daughter got married. And he's like, bet, so where's Rachel? And then Laban's like, yo, listen, if you agree to work for me for another 7 years, I'll give you Rachel next week. And then Jacob is like, bet, for Rachel, I'll do it. And then he meets up with Rachel. He's like, baby girl, you're like, your father tricked me. I thought it was you. And she's like, bet, I understand. And as time goes on, God blesses Jacob. He makes him rich. He gives him flocks of his own. And then Jacob is like, yo, my uncle Laban is like, he's like on my butt too much. I gotta get out of here. Y'all are coming with me. And as Jacob is leaving with his wives and his 10 sons, he, like, a couple days go by and he sees riders coming at him, and they're like, bro, what is this? It's Laban. And he runs up on Jacob and he's like, Jacob, you didn't tell me y'all were leaving. And then Jacob is like, sorry, I just had to get out of there. And then Laban is like, yo, you didn't also tell me you were taking my daughter. And he was like, bet, I did not tell you that, my bad. And then Laban is like, yo, if we being for real, I was finna smoke you. Like, I was finna put you 6 feet under, but God told me not to, so I'm not gonna do that. Instead, you guys should just head off. My throat. Thank you, Jesus. Also, Laban being petty, he sets up rocks and he's like, you stay on your side, I'll stay on my side. Later on, Jacob has another vision, and it's just basically a bunch of angels being like, yo, what's cracking? And Jacob is like, yo, I think it's about time. I'm gonna go see my brother Esau, the one that tried smoking him previously in the story. So he looks at a couple of his servants and he's like, yo, go out there and see if my brother is out there. They come back and they're like, yo, master, he's pulling up with the gang. Like, there's 400 people with him. And Jacob is like, yo, I should probably hide my family. That way, if Esau is actually mad at me, he won't be able to get to them. So he tries to hide his family to the best of his capability. And then he prays and he starts asking God to forgive him for his sins. And he starts admitting to his mess ups. He's like, man, I know I messed up, Lord, but I ask you to forgive me. And Jacob is like moving his family a bunch, and he puts his family over one side of the river that they were on. And he's like, okay, bet, you're on this side of the river. That way, if Esau wants to smoke me, he can't get to you guys. And then Jacob is on the other side of the river, like the opposite of where his family is. And he's walking, and all of a sudden, he gets jumped by an angel. So him and an angel just start wrestling. He's like, ah! And the angel is like roughing my boy up. He's like, yo, give up. And Jacob, being Jacob, he's like, ah, no, not until you bless me. And then the angel's like, bet you're blessed, and your name is not Jacob anymore, it's Israel. So the angel blesses him and also gives him a new name. Esau and Jacob, they meet up. Esau doesn't want to smoke Jacob. He's happy. He's like, my brother, it's been so long. Jacob is like, yo, bro, thank you for not being mad at me, bro. I get I messed up, but at least we're here together. And they just start chilling. And, Jacob hasn't seen his dad in so long. So he goes up to Esau. He's like, brother, it's been real. I'm finna dip. I'm gonna go see dad. Esau's like, bet. Like, it was nice meeting your family. I gotta dip too. God bless you. He's like, God bless you too. They're like, what's crack? So, long story short, Jacob, meets up with Isaac, and he's like, Dad, what's up? It's been a while. Isaac is like, hello, my baby boy. It has been a while. I love you. Like, I've missed you. It's so amazing to see you. Jacob's like, yeah, it is. And, Jacob starts introducing Isaac to the little ones, like his wives and his family. And, Isaac, hasn't seen his son in a while. So it brought him, euphoria seeing his kid's kid. So, years later, Isaac goes to be with God, and Isaac passes away. So, Jacob, as life goes on, Jacob's 10 sons grow up, and his favorite son goes by the name of Joseph. And, Joseph being, Jacob's favorite son, he makes him a really, a colorful robe. And then the other sons are, jealous. They're like... And then Joseph has the ability... His, dreams can, prophesy stuff. Meaning, if he has a dream, he can interpret it and know what's going to happen next in the future. So, Joseph has a dream, and he's like... And he wakes up and he's like, yo, I gotta tell my brothers about this. So he goes to his brothers and he's like, yo, I just had a dream. All of y'all were bowing down to me. I was him. And then, Joseph's brothers, not liking him. They start trashing on him. They're like, you think you're going to be able to reign over us? Oh, yeah, whatever. Da, 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 da. They just start bad-mouthing my boy. And then Joseph has another dream, so he goes up to his dad and his brothers, and he's like, yo, listen up, I just had another dream. And in the dream, he describes as the stars, the sun, and the moon bowing to him. They were bowing down to Joseph. And Joseph's brothers have had enough of him, so they're like, yo, we finna smoke boy. And then they're like, oh man, we probably shouldn't smoke him. That's OD. We probably shouldn't do that. So instead what they do is they lead him away from Jacob, the camp and stuff. And they're like, yo, let's just ripped off his cloak and they threw him in a ditch. And then they leave. They come back with slave traders and they sell Joseph into slavery. Also, just a little side note, one of the brothers weren't present when that whole thing happened. So yeah. The brothers then take Joseph's coat and they rip it up and cover it in blood to sell it to, sell it that he actually got smoked. So the brothers go back to Jacob. They give him the coat. Jacob thinks his son is dead. So he's like, Joseph! So time skip and the slave traders take Joseph to Egypt. Now Joseph is standing in a line filled with other slaves and he's about to be sold off. And then they come to the conclusion. They point fingers at Joseph and they're like, yo, he would be good in the king's palace. Let's just give him to the king. And they're like, bet. So Joseph is served as a slave to the king's palace. So Joseph starts working as a slave in the king's palace, and then Potiphar's wife starts to get attracted to him. If you don't know who Potiphar is, he was basically an Egyptian official. More specifically, he was the captain of the guards. So yeah. So, she starts hitting on him and she's like, yo, let me get some of that. And, Joseph, obviously, he's loyal to God and, his master. So he's like, nah, I'm not gonna do that. You can't, you know what I'm saying? And she's like, man, you think you can reject me like that? And Joseph just runs away. And then she just full on tells a lie on my man. She just goes up to her husband and she's like, yo, he threw himself on me. Your slave threw himself on me. I feel so, violated right now. You just go deal with him. Potiphar, Joseph's, quote unquote owner, goes up to him and he's like, yo, who do you think you are throwing yourself on my wife like that? And he throws Joseph in jail. So Joseph is in jail. He's in there for a little bit. And then two people start talking about the dreams that they had, prisoners. one of them was like, oh man, I had this dream. And then Joseph goes up to one of them and he's like, yo, my God can interpret dreams. Tell me your dream and I'll tell you what it means. And then the guy's like, bet. So he tells him his dream. He basically tells him that his head is going to be lifted up and he'll be the king's butler again. And the guy's like, yo, bet, that's what's up. And then the other guy's like, okay, bet, tell me my dream. And Joseph basically tells the other guy, he's like, yo, I just interpreted your dream. You're going to get your head cut off in 3 days. A little time goes by, and one of the prisoners that Joseph said was going to be the king's butler again gets freed. And before he leaves, Joseph goes out to him and he's like, yo, put in a good word for me and of what I could do. And, and the guy just forgets. He never tells Pharaoh of what he can do at all. He just forgets. And, as time goes by, Pharaoh has a dream that no one is able to interpret. And then the butler, he gets reminded. He's like, oh, so he goes up to the Pharaoh and he's like, yo, there's a guy in prison. He's really good at interpreting dreams. He could actually tell you what this means. And Pharaoh is like, bet, bring him here. So they bring Joseph into the room, and the Pharaoh is like, yo, I hear you can speak of dreams. You can interpret dreams. And then Joseph is like, yes, I can. No, I can't, but my God can. He tells me and I'll tell you. Tell me your dream, Pharaoh. And Pharaoh goes on to tell him that his dream is... Okay, Pharaoh goes on to tell him that what his dream is, and then Joseph interprets it, and he's like, yo, there are going to be 7 years of good crops in Egypt, and then there are going to be 7 years of famine. What you need to do is you need to round up, what's the word I'm thinking of? He's like, yo, you just need to, be smart about how you're using your food, and it should last you 7 years. And then Pharaoh is like, okay, bet. You're actually so good at what you do, I'm going to make you the prime minister of Egypt. You'll be higher than everyone. You'll be second to me. And Joseph is like, bet. So Joseph becomes like the prime minister of Egypt. He's that dog. And then his brothers pull up. Now, listen, this is a long time. So they don't recognize Joseph. They probably don't even know what he looks like anymore, right? So they go up and they're trying to buy food because, 7 years of famine. Joseph sees this and he's like, oh, I see y'all. And to get not revenge, but to test to see if they've changed or not. He's like, yo, y'all are spies. He throws them in jail and eventually he lets them go, but he keeps one of them and he's like, yo, y'all, if y'all say who y'all say y'all are, because they told Joseph that they were sons of Isaac, that they were the son of the great chieftain, and they're like, bet, okay. And Joseph's like, bet, okay, if you're actually who you say you are, go bring me the youngest boy, go bring me your youngest brother and bring him back here. And to for insurance, he kept one of the brothers in jail. So they go home and they're like, yo, father, the prime minister has one of our brothers. We need to bring Simeon. We need to bring Benjamin. His name wasn't Simeon, sorry. We need to bring Benjamin to the prime minister so we can show him that we're not lying. And then Isaac, already have lost Joseph. He's like, no, I'm not letting y'all take him. But then eventually they run out of food and they know what they have to do. So they go back to Egypt. They go to the prime minister and they present Benjamin, the young boy, to him, Joseph. And then Joseph meets the youngest brother. And then, he starts getting emotional, so he pulls back and then goes into hard mode, like he's about to whoop somebody's butt. And then eventually he lets them go, but he plays a trick on them. He takes one of his cups and he puts them in Benjamin's grain bag because he sent them off with bags of grain to last them so they could eat. So as they're leaving, they're getting far. One of the Joseph's servants in a chariot pulls up and they're like, yo, one of you guys stole my master's golden cup and you gotta give it back. And they're like, we didn't steal nothing. They get taken back to Egypt. And then Joseph is like, man, I gave y'all food. I gave y'all hospitality and this is what y'all do. Y'all steal from me. Joseph is playing them, but he wants to see if they change. This is a test. And then they're all like, oh, well, we didn't do anything. So they start cutting open the bags, right? They start cutting open the bags to see if they had stashed anything in there, right? Oh, shoot. So Joseph, being Joseph, he puts the cup in Benjamin's grain bag. So when it falls out, it looks like Benjamin stole the cup, stole Joseph's cup. So he keeps Benjamin. Benjamin is like scared, and he looks at Joseph, and Joseph is like, since this boy took my cup, he's gonna be my slave. And then the other brothers are like, no, we can't let this happen. So they fall to their knees. One of them is like, yo, you cannot take Benjamin, take me. I'll be your slave. You just can't take Benjamin. My father, we already lost our brother, but like we can't let you take him. And Joseph, the gigs up. So Joseph's like, yo, I'm not actually who I say I am. I'm your brother Joseph. They all start freaking out. They're like, Joseph. Da, 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 da. And so to wrap this up, Joseph, he like loves his brothers. A great family reunion. He gets taken back. Joseph says, yo, go back home, bring me dad. It happens. Joseph meets his dad again. And then, Isaac, he's like, oh man, my son, I love you, da 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 da. And then it comes to the time where Isaac is about to pass away. And then Joseph is like, oh, let me be here for you. And then Isaac is like, yo, bring me your children so I can bless them. And then Isaac passes away. Joseph goes up to a cliff. Not a cliff, he goes somewhere. And he's like in grief. And the brothers get down and they're bowing down to him. And they're like, yo, if you want to, we can be your slaves. And then Joseph is like, no, you're good. You don't have to do all that. And then it gets to the time where Joseph grows old and he starts telling a couple people, he's like, yo, they were like his relatives. And he was telling them, yo, our God will bring you out of the land to land that he gave to Jacob, that he gave to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And then Joseph passes away. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the book of Genesis. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like, comment, and subscribe. This took so long to do, but I thank you guys, and I greatly appreciate that you clicked on the video and that you watched to the end. And I just want to go ahead and just say thank you. I love you, and maybe if this video gets an insane amount of support, I'll cover the book of Exodus if you guys want me to. But yeah, yeah. I feel like that's the end of the video. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I thank you. I love you. And God bless.